here we are. This is Sex Love Psychedelics, and I'm your host, Dr. Kat, bringing you psychosexual conversations that will leave you intellectually turned on and hungry for more.
Oftentimes in our society, men are the ones that initiate. They're the ones that start with initiation. Again, I think a big part of this is because they've been conditioned to that that's your job. And culturally, women have been shamed for having their own desires to initiate, or being called too masculine or too much or too easy or too desperate or too available or a slut if they initiate directly. And it's interesting because we might intellectually know this and talk about this in our society, but even for those of us who intellectually know, it can still unconsciously play out in our system, preventing us from expressing ourselves, being authentic, making that first move. And at the same time, when a woman who turns down an initiation might have experienced being called a bitch or labeled a tease, like you're such a tease, you've been flirting with me all night and you're leading me on, or you're too stuck up, you're full of yourself. I've definitely received that. Maybe you've been given the guilt trip for saying no. I've definitely received that too. None of those guilt trips were with anybody that I knew, but these have been at probably during my clubbing days and yes, at Burning Man, actually, where my no was met with a pretty aggressive response back of like, fine, you're just full of yourself. I don't remember exactly what their words were, but it was in that tone. And personally, I think a lot of this, I was called a bitch one time. That is right. Yep, that happened. Personally, I think a lot of this has to do with the skills of communicating and the lack of insight that we have around both cultural conditioning and our own personal ways that we're protecting ourselves. The question of, are we in protection mode when we're speaking or non-verbally guarding, or are we in our strength? Sadly, most of the time it's the former, because many people haven't done the therapy to be able to understand, again, from what part of them are they speaking. And so the message lands in a very clunky way. The biggest determinant of a successful no, or setting our limits, or expressing our desires or our needs, is congruency. Is the body language, the tone, the energy, and the attention all in agreement? And if it's mixed between hesitancy, which is the lack of legitimacy, our personal understanding of our own legitimacy, and believing that we have the right to this desire or this need or this limit, then it's going to dilute the power behind your request or your statement. Teaching these skills is going to take way more than a single podcast. This is actually going to take therapy work, or you can join one of my online courses where we do exactly this. We unravel the internal habituated patterns and core beliefs to see what might be impacting the power behind our no, or the power behind our initiation. But what I'm inviting you to do in this conversation is to start considering what your role is in this dance. Again, if you are a woman who you say no to the person who's initiating or coming in for that unconsenting kiss without asking, but your no has the energy of pulling away or shrinking or giggling or avoidance of eye contact, that is a very good example of this mixed message. Your energy is muddled. It's not congruent with your words. You're saying no, but the body language isn't matching. Or same on the flip side, if somebody is saying, I believe in consent, but their actions keep pushing you, that's not congruent. And for either one of those situations, either one of those roles, it creates confusion and it creates non-safety.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for tuning in, lovers. And if you want to experience more ecstasy and sexual liberation, head over to sexlovepsychedelics.com and learn about how you can join me for any one of my online or live events. And while you're there, grab my free guide on sex and psychedelics. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please contact your healthcare provider and local law before pursuing any of the products or psychedelics discussed. And one final note here. I make this show specifically for you. If you're loving the show, then be sure to leave me a review in iTunes or Spotify to let me know. Happy to be here and happy to serve. I'll see you next time on Sex, Love, Psychedelics.